Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to another video. Today's video, we've got another Premier League predictions video on our hands here today. Another round of Premier League fixtures is fast approaching. This one is going to be another one that's going to be intriguing and exciting as the run-in to the Premier League conclusion continues. The games will affect the entirety of the Premier League table, but of course this weekend is a little bit different because there's only going to be 8 Premier League games that are going to be there for the viewing this weekend, as the FA Cup semi-final is also taking place. The likes of Brighton, Manchester United and Manchester City will all be in action at Wembley this weekend in the FA Cup, as that also reaches its conclusion. I'll probably be making a video on that later on in the week. But that does mean that there are still 8 Premier League fixtures for us to sink our teeth into. Before we get to talking about all of them Premier League games and giving my predictions and everything else that goes along with that, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always incredibly greatly appreciated. And also I'm asking you for you to voice your opinions and your predictions as well down below in the comment section, as I'm sure your predictions on all of the upcoming games this weekend will all make for interesting and great reading. But for now, let's get into the predictions. First up, we've got a Friday night encounter. It is Arsenal, top of the table, against Southampton, bottom of the table. A first versus last clash, I guess you'd say, at the Emirates Stadium. Arsenal looking to bounce back and get back to winning ways after 2 back-to-back draws in which they were 2-0 up in both games and ultimately dropped points 2-2. Obviously, last weekend against West Ham was seen as a bit of a bottle job by the Gunners. So they definitely need to get back to winning ways here and now. Obviously coming up against the Southampton side that are out of form, out of sorts, and are edging ever closer to the fear of relegation. Look, this one should be a foregone conclusion in my opinion. Arsenal should bounce back and get back to winning ways here. They've seemed to be struggling to handle the pressure a little bit in the past couple of weeks. But this one should be relatively straightforward for them to contend with. In my opinion, and that is why I've got to go with an Arsenal win. I've got to go with the favourites. They're at home. They're obviously trying to stretch their lead over Manchester City to 7 points. I know City will have 2 games in hand, but 7 points doesn't. But 2 games in hand doesn't mean 6 points on the board. And obviously, with that massive game against Manchester City coming up in the middle of next week, obviously to go in 7 points clear would be a bit of maybe a bit of a psychological advantage for the Gunners. Who knows? But I am going to go with Arsenal to win, and I'm going to say that the Gunners come out of this one as 3-1 winners. Next up, one of the 3 o'clock Saturday games, we'll see Fulham at Craven Cottage at home take on Leeds. Leeds obviously in a bit of disarray right now. They've conceded 11 goals in their past 2 games, and obviously coming up against the Fulham side, who haven't been in the best of form, but kind of stopped a bit of a rot last time out when they beat Everton in their last game in the Premier League. Look, Leeds obviously need points to battle relegation. They're in 16th place right now. They're not safe by any means because the bottom 8 teams are so closely together that a win here and a win there will see the entirety of that bottom 8 kind of change. But they are against the Fulham side, who I thought would struggle to score goals, and to an extent they really have, and they've struggled to win, and the wheels have kind of come off their season a little bit. Beating Everton last week, big win obviously in order to stop the kind of run of defeats, but ultimately, you know, still very tough to kind of call on their kind of inconsistencies as of late. In terms of this result, look, this one could go any which way. I am leaning more towards Fulham based off of the form of Leeds in recent games and everything. Leeds have the potential to take something from this game, of course they do. But I think with how the past couple of games have gone, conceding 11 goals in 2 games, I'm going to lean more towards Fulham, and I'm going to give Fulham the slight edge and say that Fulham come out of this game as 2-1 winners. Next up, Brentford take on Aston Villa, an in-form Aston Villa, unfortunately for Brentford. Look, Brentford at home, they can beat anybody on their day. We know how good Brentford can definitely be, but in recent games, again, they've fallen off a little bit. No win in their last 5 games. Brentford slip up a little bit in this competition, simply for the reason that, again, European football is not completely out of the question for them. but it is slipping away with each time that they do slip up themselves. So that could be something to consider as well. But against an Aston Villa side who are on a bit of a roll right now, unbeaten in however many games. I think it's like 6 games they're unbeaten in now. Put together a winning streak of 5 in a row. European football is definitely on for them, and I don't think a lot of people predicted that, whether it be at the start of the season or certainly in the past few weeks, where of course they started to put this winning run together and have become one of the most informed teams in the Premier League right now. Like I say, Brentford on their day can beat anybody, but I just have to give the slight edge to Villa in this game, simply for the reason that they're on a bit of form right now, and they've got one of the most informed strikers, other than Haaland, obviously, in the league right now, and that's Ollie Watkins. Ollie Watkins is simply on fire right now, and I predict that he'll get on the score sheet yet again in this game and help Aston Villa towards another 3 points and another victory that will see them possibly go on level on points with Tottenham after this weekend is done and dusted, depending obviously on what Tottenham's game finishes on Sunday, which we'll get onto a little later. So therefore, I'm going to go with an Aston Villa win, and I'm going to say that Unai Emery's side come out of this one as 2-1 winners. Next up, we're off to Selhurst Park. It is Crystal Palace against Everton. Obviously, Palace under Roy Hodgson have completely transformed right now. They are unbelievable. They could not buy a win for love nor money before Roy Hodgson came in. And then as soon as he's come in, he's got them scoring plenty of goals. He's got them winning games. Roy Hodgson has transformed this team within the space of, what was it, a week before his first game from being appointed to obviously winning games. He's done incredible there, obviously, since rejoining them and returning to Selhurst Park. Whether that will continue or whether this is just a new manager bounce obviously remains to be seen. They come up against an Everton side who are in need of points. They are one place outside the drop zone, and obviously after this weekend could potentially fall into it depending on how results go for the other teams that are in them. Big game for Everton. They need to start winning games again. Slipped up past few weeks. Not managed to get enough out of those games to kind of put together a survival bid. But obviously this one could represent a slightly more favourable tie. Although, obviously, like I say, Palace are very much in the ascendancy because of the kind of form that they're in and the kind of form that they are showing under Roy Hodgson. Whether that will continue this weekend remains to be seen. But I genuinely do believe that Palace will continue that form simply for the fact that they are at home. They're playing some really good football right now. Their attacking style is definitely outweighing a lot of the teams that are in and around them, and they continue to put points. They continue to put points between them and obviously the bottom 3. Score prediction: Palace to win, and I'm going to say it's going to end 2-0 to Roy Hodgson's side. Next up, we're off to the King Power Stadium. It is Leicester City taking on Wolverhampton Wanderers. Dean Smith's second game in charge, but his first home game in charge of the Foxes, who are in desperate need of obviously getting points on the board if they are to try and stave off this relegation threat. Leicester find themselves in 19th place and obviously come up against the Wolves side, who are unbeaten in their last 3 games, including last week's 2-0 victory over Brentford. You've got a Leicester side who haven't won in 9. That's the big challenge Dean Smith faces. This Leicester side have not won in their last 9 Premier League games. And it's starting to worry the Leicester fans about how or where their next win is going to come from. And obviously it needs to be very, very soon, because the gap at the bottom could definitely change after this weekend, and it could be even more difficult to get out of. Against a Wolves side who are pretty inconsistent, they sometimes find a bit of form here and there, but they are relatively inconsistent. Leicester could fancy their chances of getting something from this game. And whilst I would lean towards Wolves, I think maybe, just maybe, they might get a point on the board here at Leicester. And that is why I'm going to say that this game will end in a draw. And I'm going to say that this game will end 1-1 come the final whistle. Next, we're off to Anfield. It is Liverpool at home taking on Nottingham Forest. Liverpool, of course, fresh off of that 6-1 thrashing of Leeds last on Monday against the Nottingham Forest side. Out of sorts, out of form, desperate need of points in the bottom three, and obviously are coming up against the Liverpool side, who you'd hope, especially I would hope, are now finding their feet a little bit. With a couple of good performances over the past couple of weeks. Maybe that will continue into this week. Look, Liverpool at home, despite what has been a terrible season for them, Liverpool at home, still very tough. They've only lost there once all season. And I think, again, I'll go back to this. Every time I back against Liverpool or say there's going to be a draw or something, Liverpool go on to win that game. I would like to obviously say that Liverpool will lose this game, in obviously the real hope that Liverpool actually go on and win this game. But of course I'll be genuine on this one. I'll be real on this one. Look, Forest, they went to face Liverpool earlier on in the season, and albeit they were at the City Ground at the time and they produced an unreal performance, played out of their skin for that game, and obviously came away with 3 points for a 1-0 win earlier in the campaign. Whilst it is entirely possible that Liverpool have another off day, which again against these kinds of sides has been happening often this season, and whilst it is possible that Forest could replicate something similar to what they showed earlier in the season against Jurgen Klopp's side, I just don't think it will happen here. And I think with the way that Liverpool are playing, with the kind of players that they have back now, Liverpool can push on for the rest of the campaign and try and salvage something from what has been a horrible, horrible season. My prediction is that Liverpool will win this game. I'm going to be genuine and honest about this one, like I say. Liverpool to win this game, and I'm going to say 3-1 to Jurgen Klopp's side. Now move on to Sunday's games, and first up we have got Bournemouth taking on West Ham United. Two teams that are only separated by a couple of points. If West Ham do win this game, they will leapfrog Bournemouth into 14th at the very least, and depending on what obviously the Wolves score is, they could actually find themselves going higher in 13th against the Bournemouth side, who, again, they've been a bit inconsistent as of late, but they've actually managed to pick up a few wins here and there. They've actually gone a little bit under the radar, in my opinion. I think a lot of people had them as a certainty to go down, but they've shown a fair bit of fight these past few weeks and months. Obviously, results haven't always gone their way, but I think they've picked up a few more points than what a lot of people would have actually believed they would have picked up, whether it be at the beginning of the season or even halfway through the campaign. So fair play to Bournemouth for that, and I think both teams will fancy their chance of getting something from this game against two sides that are fairly, like I say, inconsistent. You've got Wolves, West Ham, who haven't been at the races for the large part of the season. They've also got a Europa Conference League game this weekend, so that could play extra fatigue into the legs of the West Ham players, which Bournemouth might be able to take advantage of. Alternatively, it could actually inspire and drive West Ham on to actually win this game even more so. Obviously, remains to be seen on that one, and obviously remains to be seen what that result is on Thursday night. But ultimately, no, this one could genuinely go any which way. Bournemouth, like I say, pulled off a brilliant victory last weekend when they beat Tottenham. They came back to beat Tottenham and even left it very, very late on with the final kick of the game to beat Tottenham by 3-2. And you've got West Ham, who themselves battled back to get something from top of the table Arsenal. The Hammers found themselves 2 goals down and they came back to draw 2-2. Intriguing game. Something that I'm going to go back and forth over, I'm sure, but I am going to say that this game will end in a draw. I am going to say that this game will see both teams share the points, and that is why I'm going to go with a 2-2 draw come the final whistle. And finally, what I believe to be the biggest game of this round of fixtures, the biggest highlight of this round of fixtures. I could have gone with Arsenal in this case, but I'm going to just stick with the final game of this round of fixtures for this weekend. It is Newcastle at home at St James's Park taking on Tottenham. Two teams battling it out for the top 4 spot. This one is going to be a massive game for both clubs because you've got a Newcastle side who obviously faltered last week. They actually picked up their 3rd defeat of the season at the hands of Aston Villa, but they're looking to bounce back against a Tottenham side who are looking to bounce back themselves, obviously, with that defeat to Bournemouth I mentioned a few moments ago, in which obviously Bournemouth won the game with the final kick of the ball when the Cherries were 3-2 winners in that one. You got a Newcastle side who have played well for the majority of this season, but were outclassed last week by Aston Villa. You've got a Tottenham side who are in complete chaos and disarray right now. The sacking of Antonio Conte was seen as a massive gamble towards their top 4 pursuit. It hasn't seemingly worked out. They haven't been great. They got lucky a couple of weeks ago against Brighton thanks to some very dodgy VAR decisions. And last weekend they got found out against Bournemouth. They're not playing great football. They're not doing ideally well. Top 4 could be out of the question for them after this weekend, should obviously Newcastle get a perfect result against them. Look, I'd fear for Tottenham if I was in their position, because I don't see them winning this game. And the obvious, and then when you look down the rest of the table, you look at the kind of form Villa are showing. You look at what Brighton can do and what they have the potential to do with their, after this weekend, will be 3 games in hand. And then you look at maybe Liverpool as well, that may be starting to find a bit of form themselves. I know how many times have we said that they might be finding a bit of form this season. I get that. I would feel for Spurs that they may not even get any kind of European football this season. Obviously, I might be proven wrong, and maybe Europa Conference League or maybe even Europa League at best might happen. But I just think that the way that Tottenham are playing, they're doing poor right now. And I just think they won't win this game. They've got some tough games coming up for the rest of the season, in which I think they've still got to play the likes of Liverpool, and I think they've got to play a couple of other tough games as well. It's not looking great. It's not looking particularly good, and that is why I think they've got a lot to worry about for the remainder of this season. But as far as this game goes, look, I think Newcastle will bounce back. I think the likes of Alan Saint-Maximin and Callum Wilson and Alexander Isak will absolutely tear that Tottenham defence apart, and I think they'll remain solid enough at the back. Spurs will obviously get a goal because of the kind of players that they have. Son seems to have picked up a little bit of form these past couple of games. Harry Kane is, well, Harry Kane. So, yeah, I genuinely do think that Newcastle win this game, and that is why I'm going to pick Newcastle to win, and for the Magpies to come out of this one as 3-1 winners. But as I always say, these are just thoughts, comments, opinions, but most of all, of course, predictions of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of all the games that are coming up this weekend? What are your own thoughts, comments, opinions? But most of all, of course, what are your predictions on all of the matches to be played across this upcoming weekend of interesting and exciting Premier League fixtures? I'm sure they'll all make for interesting and great reading down below in the comments section, I'm sure. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way up, enjoy the video, subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things always and forever be greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch, this has been another Premier League predictions video, and I will see you all again soon in another video.